We got the tire ballast in, and any thoughts on how it rides?
Oh my word. It is so smooth.
Why is it smoother? Okay guys, first step of making the tractor safer was putting wheel spacers on the rear. The next step is filling the tires with ballast. So we got this from O'Reilly. It was $300 for 55 gallons, so this is $600 total. This is minus 50 RV and marine antifreeze. You know, hit minus 41 this last winter here, and so this gives me a lot of peace of mind. These tires, this particular tire, if you look at the tire charts, 16.9-24 holds 61 gallons, and that's 75% full. So that's, you know, 122 gallons. And so I could have bought some more of this, but I'm going to put 55 in each side. I've got 2 of these, and so it was $600. I might have been able to talk them down some more, but this was a lot cheaper than the deal than the deal AutoZone was going to give me. I was originally going to move these over to the tractor with the tractor to where I parked the tractor, but I thought that's dumb. These are heavy and hard to move. I'll just put the tractor near these. Even though they're up on the trailer, I think it'll be fine with this pump. So this is just a little 12 volt pump, 8 amps, pulls 8 amps. I'm just going to use this little battery for it, and I've hooked it up with 3/8 inner diameter tubing, and this is going to drop in the tank. This is 1/2 inch inner diameter tubing right here coming off, and that's going to return back to the tank as well. So the little manifold I used, this is a takeoff of Dave Knows How. If you don't know, if you have a tractor and you don't watch Dave Knows How on YouTube, I've learned so many things from that guy over the years. He is one crafty guy. And so this is kind of a modified version of his PVC kind of with a pressure gauge. I'm not using a pressure gauge, but this is just some hose pieces that I have laying around. And then this adapter, of course, is the slime tire air water filler adapter. And you can buy these at Tractor Supply or Murdoch's. So this is just going to screw on the valve stem. I'll be able to pump fluid in one side, and I'll be able to close this off, but I'll be able to open this and vent out the other side when the pressure gets to be too high, and I'll just do that periodically. I don't have a pressure gauge on it. I may regret that. Let's find out. Pull the valve stem here. Hopefully the tire won't come off the bead, because that'll suck. These are big and heavy. When I got a flat on that tire one time, I just it de-beaded, of course, and I just jacked it up, sprayed some starting fluid around inside, sprayed a little trail out here, and then lit it with the lighter, and bam, popped, blew up and popped, and the tire was back on in a second. So I probably just do the same thing here. So I don't have a tool for this, so we're just going to use a pair of pliers. Okay, it's pretty full. Let's get her in the tires. I'll drop the intake side of the pump down in here, and also the return side. Hey, this tractor is about 7 years old, so I think I got lucky. These tires aren't new, so there's not a lot of rebound in them, I guess. So let's screw this on here. So this does have a vent that you can vent the air. Just from videos I've watched, people say this isn't very effective because of that little tiny hole that's right there in the top, that little tiny hole. So I don't know. So we'll just use this to vent it. All right, we got to prime this pump first. That worked pretty well. Starting to come out the other side even, and fill up down there. Okay, good. Maybe having this elevated a little bit helped. Okay, so this is just 10 feet of this 1/2 inch inner diameter. This is real flimsy. It's not as stiff as this stuff. I like the stiffer stuff better, but just put a little pair of vice grips. There's still plenty of lumen in there that fluid can flow through there. Just a quick review of the parts here. This is the adapter from Slime, and this is a male water hose adapter right here. So it's male into here, and it's male into here. So that brass piece right there, that's male water hose. And this is just a 2-way from a water hose, obviously. And then these are 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch water hose female adapters screwed on there. And so this is 3/8 hose. I had to heat it with a heat gun to get this to press over the 1/2 inch. Worked fine. Just took a minute to heat it with the heat gun and then push it inside there. Of course, it slipped right into this 1/2 inch side. Okay, so let's hook the pump up and see what's happening here, see if it's going to work. It looks like it should be mostly primed. Let's turn it on and see what happens. Okay, a lot of it's coming out the other way. Let's close this valve down here and see. Okay, I can hear it streaming in now. We got a leak. Where's the leak coming from? Right there. Let me fix that. Okay, the pump doesn't seem to be struggling. It seems to be running pretty good. And I can hear fluid flowing in. And there's a little bit draining out right there, just kind of giving it some relief. Okay, out came some air there. What let's do is let's shut off the pump. I'm just going to unplug it here. Let's close this. And let's open this. And really no fluids, no air's coming out. So I guess we're doing okay. Let's get it going again.
So using clear tubing made a huge difference because for the most part I could see what's going on. But occasionally the vent line would be full of fluid like it is here, so I would just turn the vent valve closed little by little just until I heard a solid stream of fluid hitting the inside top of the tire. My thinking was that this would allow for a constant vent to prevent overpressure and still fill as fast as possible. But let's see how this actually works out.
I don't know if you can hear it, but I can hear the fluid hitting the top of the tire as it's squirting in from right here. It's hitting right there. Now this is kind of a small orifice. This does come with a bigger adapter, but my valve stems don't come apart for that larger adapter. So we'll be here a little longer. I was worried that would stress this pump. I guess my biggest worry is, I don't want this pump to fail. It needs to do the job. I'd like to use it in the future too for other things. So, but this is meant to pump against a sprayer head, right? So you should be able to, and a sprayer nozzle is pretty small. So this is a lot bigger than a sprayer nozzle, so I think it'll be just fine. In about 5 minutes, I'm just opening this every minute or so, and I don't see any air coming out, but I'll just keep doing that periodically just to make sure it's not building up too much pressure inside. For you guys that have done this, leave me a comment down below, please. I'm interested in to see if if you get a puncture or you get a tear, do you notice it right away? I'm guessing that, let's say I use my tractor for an hour or two or whatever and I park it, I want to check it over and look at it and just look under the tires just to make sure it's not leaking fluid anywhere. Because if that's the case, I can roll it, get that puncture up high, and then either get a plug in it or use one of those tread patch kits that you can put over the outside if it's a big tear. So, I don't want to lose fluid because it is expensive. Now this pump is not fast, it's only 2.2 gallons a minute. So let's say with this stricture here, it's only pumping, 1.5, or I don't know. I'm gonna guess and say it's pumping at 1.5 gallons a minute. It's gonna take a little while to pump this 55 gallons into this tire. So let's say it's pumping 1 gallon a minute, right? That would take 55 minutes. If it's pumping 2 gallons a minute, it's gonna take 27 minutes roughly. Oh, there comes some air. Stop the pump. I can still hear it coming through here. It didn't sound like the pump was working much harder, but this is a 60 psi pump, so this could pump a lot of fluid in maybe without letting any air out. I don't really want to try that because I would worry that some of my connections might pop apart. Water hose pressure can be 50 psi, even probably as high as 60 psi, but 50 seems to be pretty common, and so this should be able to tolerate any of that. Although it's not as robust as Dave Knows How's PVC version.
And right about here is where I made my mistake. I let off so much pressure that the tire actually came off the rim. Had I had a pressure gauge on, I might have been able to prevent that.
You can see it's getting full, the tractor's starting to lean that way. And so you can see by some fluid on the ground that things didn't go all as planned, especially in here. So my wife and I were talking in the garage and she's like, why is it leaking out the tire? And I'm like, it's not, oh shoot. So it had actually debeaded in here. And so we lost, you know, I don't know, not even close, not even half a gallon, I don't think. But it was just kind of running down right here. We just caught it right away, so that was good. Put the strap on, ratchet strap, tightened it down. Got most of the bead back on, but it was still leaking air and fluid. So this is an old tire trick. You can use this and just put it right on the chuck, and you get full flow from your compressor. Now this is high pressure. You don't want to do this on a small tire. Sounds like we're just about out. You don't want to do this on a small tire because it will overpressure your tire. So this is a dangerous trick. And I don't want all the air leaking out either there, so we're going to close that one off too. But you can push it on and hold it on. Now the danger is it can get stuck, so make sure you can shut your compressor off or disconnect the air hose somehow quickly if this gets stuck on there. I've never had one stick, but I've heard of that happening. So push it on, and it took about 30 seconds to fill this huge tire and to pop the bead on. And so then it sealed and we were able to continue. So I just left the strap on for now, and I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the fluid in, and then we'll set the tire pressure, and then we'll move on to the next tire. Let me show you something. My wife also, you know, I don't know, my wife's pretty smart. She has some good ideas sometimes. Not always, but she has a lot of good ideas, and I do listen to her because she saved me from a lot of trouble. Now this hose, of course, is coiled, and so when I put it down inside there, it just kind of coils around, and it's hard to get it down in the very bottom. And she said, why don't you just slide it down a piece of PVC that'll keep it straight, and put the end like that. And sure enough, she was right. And dude, that is basically empty. There might be just a tiny bit in the very bottom there, so this is super empty. So this was perfect, and it was just the right length, so it kind of sticks out just barely, and that sits down in the bottom and sucks out the last little bit. So thank you, Dawn, for that. All right, so that's 55 gallons, maybe 54 and a half after what we lost. There's air coming out right there, so there's no fluid coming out, so the fluid's definitely not above this level here. We know that. One other thing about this pump, this is obviously the vacuum side. The pressure side, this popped off one time when I shut the pump off right here, or shut the flow off right here, it deadheads and it shuts the pump off. It recognizes that as an overpressure. Well, it popped the hose off here a couple times, so a little zip tie just kind of solved that temporarily for me. Okay, so good. This one's done. I'm going to get this off, get the valve stem or the valve core back in to the valve stem. We'll get the tire pressure set to about 15 psi and move on to the next one. Okay, I still have the strap on, but I'm going to go ahead and set it up to 15 psi. When we let the strap off, some of the pressure will drop, right? Because the strap's keeping a lot of tension around the tire right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get it up to about 15 psi, and then we'll take the strap off, and hopefully it won't drop so much that it pops off the bead. Draining the air, but this time we're taking a precaution. We're just going to put the strap on preemptively. So this is probably, you know, that other tire unbeading could have been prevented possibly by having that pressure gauge, or maybe completely avoided, because I could have maintained plenty pressure at all times and adjusted the exhaust flow, I don't know what else do we want to call it, the relief flow, to maintain, you know, 20 psi or whatever. And so now I wish I had spent the money and just bought a gauge and put it on. That could have been catastrophic. You know, had it really unbeaded a lot, my fluid could have just poured out except for that lower level. And so that could have been a loss of, you know, $100 or so. Ugh. All right, lesson learned. Okay, this is 1.5 inch. And there's the hose coming out. Just taped it on the top there so the hose wouldn't disappear completely. Now, when it starts to get lower, we'll go ahead and tilt it with some blocks and then put this into the hose right down in that corner right there. Okay, so my plan of the strap keeping the tire beaded on the rim did not work. Okay, so maybe that's a good lesson, right? Don't rely on letting all the air pressure out. Another reason to have a gauge here. So I got the bead back on with this. I just pushed this on the chuck. That free flowed a lot of air real quickly. Got it back on, and it's a little wet down there, but I don't see anything dripping off. So we got the bead back on. That's awesome. And I can hear it spraying, hitting the top there, but we've got a little bit leaking out right here constantly. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Dave, if you're watching this video, you're right, bro. I should have put a pressure gauge on. It would have saved me a lot of headache. Twice. Oh boy. So I can hear some of you saying out loud what I'm thinking right now is this really worth it to do this myself? And I don't know. But I would say that having these experiences now, let's say I do get a puncture and I start losing fluid and I lose some of my fluid out, I can plug it, right? Hopefully, or patch it, get that part up until I can get it dried, plugged, or patched from the outside. And then I can just go buy the fluid myself. I've already got the stuff to do it. I've spent a little bit of money on this, but I have the stuff. I can refill it myself now. Now, same thing. Let's say I paid somebody to do this. I drove this to, and I'd have to probably drive about 90 miles to a tractor shop in Bozeman to get this done. So, because nobody around me even works on tractors, so I would probably have to do that. Get them filled. Let's say I have a puncture and I lose half my fluid, and I have calcium chloride in it or whatever, or beet juice. Now I've got to go back, load it up again, go back, or have their service truck come out and fill me. I don't know how much that costs, but now I can just go buy the fluid myself and fill it up myself. A little bit of a pain, but it's also kind of a pain to load your tractor up and haul it off, you know, and haul it somewhere. Now I've got the equipment. I'm just going to put it in a tub and label it tractor tire ballast kit, something like that, and just leave it in there. I don't know. I think the more things you can do yourself, the better off you are. And I think in the long run, I'm going to be happier that I actually invested in the equipment to do this for myself. Now, you know, listen to the sound of your pump and the sound that it's making. Two things. It doesn't sound like it's working too hard. It's the return line's full of fluid. I can't quite see if it's has air in it or not, but I can pull this out here and see that it's draining a little bit of fluid. Okay, so it is relieving some of the pressure that's in the tank. Now, the other thing is listen to the sound of the pump, because watch this. We're going to move this around a little bit. Hear that? That's the hose end suctioning onto the bottom of the tank and blocking the flow. So make sure the pump is always sounding like it's pumping. Okay. Check for leaks. That's from a drip I had right there, but it's not leaking around the bead there. Let's look inside. And this is from when the bead popped earlier. There's a little bit of fluid running around right there, kind of right inside there. So don't let that trick you later that you think you have a leak. I mean, I'm going to clean it up now and still keep my eye on it, but that fooled me on that tire, because I had a little bit of fluid running around right on top of the bead there, and then it started draining down. I was like, oh man, I have a leak at 15 pounds of air, with 15 pounds of air in it. Okay guys, let me just say, it feels so much more planted. It you know, before the tire ballast, it just seemed real bouncy. And the weight, even the weight of the loader, you know, maybe that's why it seemed to rock forward and back more. And so the back end seemed more bouncy, like it would bounce up and down. And it seems more planted now, like it's not bouncing at all. Now I haven't carried a load in the loader yet, but I carried several loads in the loader this morning, and even scooping up a load with this box blade's supposed to be 1,000 pounds is what the manual says it weighs at. But you know, I would lift, and the front end would kind of dive down, the back end would kind of rise up when I'd lift my load, full load of dirt. I'll have to try it out, of course. I think it's going to be a lot better. But, you know, going up across this road, it's pretty rough and bouncy, and it just seems more planted. I thought it would feel rougher. It doesn't feel rougher to me. So I can't explain that because there's less air in the tires. But maybe it was this was so bouncy before, that's what made it feel rough, and now it just feels planted, like it's not going to bounce or it's not going to tip. So I'm super happy right now. I ran 1500 RPM uphill, dragging the box blade full of dirt, and it seemed to perform better. And I can't really explain that either, but maybe it's just psychological. Maybe I'm just thinking that everything's going to be better because of this. This may be a little hard to see, but getting around the trailer and the Jeep here, you know, I can get partly on the road, but tires drop down on a little off-camera place right there. And so I just rolled through it once. I had to back up and roll through it again because I didn't feel like I was going to tip over, even when the left side kind of drops down. Now, of course, that's a combination, and it's just a feeling, you know. But I'm not leaning hard to the right, like leaning way over here, like, whoa, I got to keep it from rolling over. Nothing like that. I mean, this is pretty sweet. It's a big investment, but a big investment in safety and a big investment in performance. Keep that loader low. That's one of the keys. So a guy from church was just telling me he rolled his tractor sometime back when he had a load in his loader and he had it up high, too high in the air, and he's on an embankment going across an embankment, and he said it just kind of rolled over and fell over on its side, and he got his Jeep and pulled it upright. And I don't know how big a tractor it was, but and you may have heard me say before that my wife's grandfather was killed in a tractor rollover. Now this was way back. This is like in the, I don't know, 50s, I want to say, because her dad actually found him after the rollover. Like, he was messed up, of course. He was still alive after the rollover when Dawn's dad found him, but he was like 8 years old. And what a terrible thing for an 8-year-old to find, you know, to find their dad, you know, mangled from a tractor rollover and just hanging on to life. And anyway, so they got him to the hospital, but he didn't survive the surgery. There was too many internal injuries. They couldn't stop all the bleeding. So it was kind of a tragic loss for him at 8 years old to lose your dad. And so, you know, Don's dad, even though he had that experience with his dad dying, he still used a tractor all his life. And he was careful, but he never put ballast in his tires or wheel spacers. And I don't know if we just didn't know about those back then. That was 30 years ago. But he's passed away since. But, you know, Dawn, my wife, still loves to use this tractor, and she'll go fire it up and move stuff with it and dig up dirt and move dirt and do all kinds of things and clean out her chicken coop and put it in the loader and go dump it around the trees. And so she'll use this for several things on her own. And I just feel like I need to do everything I can to make sure it's as safe as it can be, you know, especially considering her family history. And you got to admire her. She's a tough girl for going out and using a tractor, knowing, you know, that her grandfather passed away. All right, I've got a little bit of fluid still coming around, and it's dripping down. That's a little concerning. On that side, on this side, I don't see anything. All right, so I'm going to wipe that off, and I'm going to keep an eye on that. Okay, so Dawn's getting some dirt dumped into her planters here, and we got the tire ballast in. And any thoughts on how it rides?
Oh my word. It's so smooth.
Why is it smoother? It seemed like it'd be harder.
Oh, this. And
So it feels more.
it's like there's enough weight in the back that you're not bouncing constantly every time you hit a bump. And it feels so much more stable when you're going a little off camber. It doesn't feel like you're going to flip over. It's just like real smooth and real even. Love it.
Okay. So it was worth the money? It was worth doing it? Okay. All right.